case.
Oh yeah, good.
You all right? How's it going?
Yeah, going well, man. Thank you. Yeah, good.
Are you off this week? Or are you still
Good.
doing work and that?
I'm always work. I'm half on, half off. Like I
Half.
work, I work as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I kind of my days are the same every day of the week. To be fair, I think what day is half the time.
Do you
Um,
work like kind of all week, or do you have set days?
I do pretty much Monday to Friday, but then like I'll have jobs and stuff left over I've got to do on. I don't tend to see clients on the weekend,
Hmm.
so just see clients during the week. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just can't. I can't force myself really to work super rigidly. I just
Hmm.
have to do it kind of spontaneously, and yeah, do it. I'll do like work for like 4 hours, bam, 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 bam,
Hmm.
and I'll be like, oh, I think I need to go and listen to the birds for a bit now, and just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just step away from it a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
Do you feel like because is it mainly language work that you do, or is it counseling, or like a mixture of both?
Mainly languages. I've got two counseling clients at the moment.
Mm.
I would like one more, I think, just because the more experience you get, the better you get at it, And
Mm.
it's also uh, teaching languages is super rewarding, and you get to help people heal those like unconscious patterns and stuff. But
Mm.
counseling's it's another level of depth, isn't it? Like you got
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can only do so much when you when you're supposed to be teaching languages, and then you go on like sort of a deep hidden trauma journey.
no,
Like,
I
I
know.
thought
I
I
do
was
it
talking about
sneakily.
Spanish.
I know. I do it sneakily. I do it sneakily. I'm like, I don't know. I just try and like just sprinkle in little red pills. And one of my clients actually said, he's like, oh, I can apply that in other areas of my life. And I was like, yeah, you can do if you want. We talked about
Yeah, yeah.
like driving, getting angry, and that kind of
Mm.
uh, just looking at that kind of egoic reaction and kind of it come raises up inside you and like gets angry at something, and I just try and get them to put their attention on like on the energy body, and get them to do a
Mm.
bit of mindfulness. Because
Yeah.
when you learn a language, man, it takes you straight back to school. All of those traumas come right up. Like it's a great thing to do if you want to
Mm.
heal and get a really practical, cool skill and connect with other people and whatnot. It's a good like personal development course,
Mm.
especially if you're an adult. Like, oh, people they hate making mistakes, they hate forgetting words. And you got to do so much of that when you learn a language. You got to be speak like a baby,
Yeah.
An
Yeah. Yeah.
adult they can't handle that. They're like, no, but I want to say this massive complex thing in English. I'm like, yeah, man, but we're working with 50 words at the moment, so
Mm.
you got to use those words, recycle them if you're ever going to be fluent. Anyway,
Yeah. Because we always want to be kind of like we always want to achieve straight away, don't we? We don't have to go through like the stumbling blocks of the learning process and putting the time and the effort and the man hours in to sort of create who you want to be or what you want to learn or the life path you want to follow. You just think it's just going to happen. And I think that's what a lot of people that talk about like manifestation and creation and bringing things into your reality, they just think, oh, you just put it out there and it just happens, but you got to put that time and effort into it as well to actually create that energy of, because the creation comes from the actual act of doing something, to be able to bring that into the reality. So I think that's where maybe a lot of people get lost off with that, maybe somewhere along in transition. But with regards to the learning thing, I think it's definitely that, like you say, that level of like kind of ego thing within the self, because we always want to be there, don't we? And we think we know everything when we don't. When we
yeah,
don't. Yeah.
and it's it's sweet in a way because it's scary, like
Mm.
you're super vulnerable when you're in that state of
Yeah,
not
yeah.
knowing anything, and then being expected to try and communicate. It's like kids have an all right time doing it because they've no other choice, and they also start the process before the ego fully develops. But as you're
Mm,
doing learning the language as an adult, you've got fully developed hardened ego, a lot of
mm,
people. So,
yeah.
and you're asking them, okay, well, let's just come right back to the start, be very
Mm,
vulnerable, and the more vulnerable you can be, like, or you can phrase it in any way you want, the more vulnerable you can be, or the more playful you are. I say to a few of my clients, I'm like, but listen, the reason I've been good at languages, it's for some reason it's an area in which I'm just super playful. When I speak to someone, my goal is, obviously you get egoic kind of thoughts that kind of arise and whatnot, and you're like, oh, what do they think of me? Or I should, any should kind of thoughts. I teach my clients very quickly as an egoic thought, and they can just ignore it. But that's the only reason I've been good at languages is because I've got a high emotional intelligence,
mm,
you and I'm all right with being like vulnerable. You put
yeah.
yourself in that state, and it's just a lot easier for your brain to learn.
Mm,
But you got to keep it open. You got, I don't know, you got to stay on like a certain wavelength. Keep that brain, keep
yeah.
that.
Because I think over time, like through the years of learning and being in education, maybe going into the working world and what have you, and then all of a sudden you want to start to learn languages, or even just like something new. You want to just learn something new in life. Um, and throughout life, through all the different challenges and traumas that we go through on like a journey of healing and self-discovery, and a lot of people probably aren't aware of a lot of that stuff that might suddenly just start to like come up when you kind of like have to let your walls down a little bit to be able to let this information in, because if you didn't, you just it'd probably just like bounce off the walls and you wouldn't really absorb the information that you need to take away to gain the knowledge on that, I suppose, on some level.
Well, with regards to languages for sure, yeah, yeah. You need to let the whole thing. It's a super spiritual process, mate. Like a lot of, and it's by the reason I started my podcast, the Spiritual Polyglot. Right, I'm going to get people on there and interview people in the language world, and just guys who they speak like 10, 12, like hyper polyglots. They speak a lot of languages to high levels as well, not just
Mm,
random phrases. They know the language, because I know the process of learning a language. I know you've got to create a character when you
mm,
do that. Like the Spanish me is not the same me that's speaking now. Well, the I is the same, right? But the persona is the English part, and then the Spanish part is different. There's a different flavor to it. And I
mm,
want to speak to these like people and just, you know, just ask them if they've had any kind of spiritual realizations, or I might trigger a few of them into them, to be
mm.
fair. They may not have ever thought about it. They may just think, no, it's me learning this language. But
Yeah.
it's a lot deeper than that when if you learn a language properly, like you
Mm,
go deeper, you create a character.
mm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, man.
Have you
Have you?
found other people that have you spoke to other people like that have had that, like what you have, like these different personas with the different languages
Yeah,
that they
everyone
use?
says it. Everyone
Yeah.
says it, but not everyone has made that spiritual link. For me, it
Right.
was quite obvious. I was like, right, if I'm just now, I had this realization when I learned how to speak French. I was thinking in French, dreaming in French, and I was like, right, I've just created this French persona. Like these words I'm speaking, imagine I'm speaking French, right? The words I'm speaking now, like 3 years before, meant nothing to
Mm,
you. And these, and I've created this kind of persona with this language. So what if, and I didn't follow the question the whole way back then, I think I was only 20, 21. What if then the English me is also a persona?
mm.
It must be, right? Because
Yeah,
it's all
yeah,
language. Like
yeah.
it's yeah. That triggered me certainly into a spiritual awakening. I made a video about it as well, on my YouTube channel, but not people don't. Yeah, I've. That's why I want to speak to people, mate. I want to see, because
Mm,
for me, it's a no-brainer. Like the next question is, well, who am I then? But then also, same thing with counseling. A lot of therapists don't get into spiritual stuff.
mm,
They learn about their patterns, about, oh, my mum said this to me all the time, and then that's created this pattern in me, which has created this voice. When I was studying all this stuff about, oh, okay, so I'm examining my subconscious mind, who I am, these thoughts, beliefs, etc. For me, the next question was super obvious. Like, well, who the fuck am I then? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
who, if I'm watching this show, like, who am I,
Mm,
right? But a lot of therapists don't go there.
yeah.
They stay in the realm of, um, I guess, yeah, in the dream world, right? Like,
Mm.
as the character.
I suppose it's like they'll stay in the realm of kind of like duality, won't they? Where they're just they've got elements that they can actually sort of focus on within that person, within their realm of the habitual states, the thought patterns, the traumas, and they can just hone on that rather than stepping out of that and looking at um, the full spherical being of who this person really is, within on a deeper level.
Yeah, yeah. Who's the watcher?
Yeah.
Who's the knower of what the known kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I find that, yeah, interesting. Do you think that it's because certain souls or whatever, certain characters in this dream are kind of destined to wake up and others not? Did we talk about NPCs before? That we probably did,
We
but do you know
probably,
what I mean?
I think we've touched on it before, but I think that certain people do, um, at
What?
like a certain point in their life, but
Yeah.
um, I mean, but it seems to, like, I thought there might be like kind of like a pattern with age or age range, because sometimes you get to a certain point in your life and it's a bit like a midlife crisis where you just kind of like, what does it all mean? You
Mm,
start questioning everything. You want to go like a little bit deeper, but there's people that are like younger, there's people that are a lot older that start going on to this path. There's people sort of like middle age, like myself, that just sort of like, well, it started quite young and then it's just kind of like continued to where I am now. Um, but there's no definite sort of, you can't put like an age range of when it's going to happen. It just happens. And it, I suppose there's an element within the self, within the soul, that is, they're destined to experience that at some point in their life. And every soul that goes through this spiritual upheaval, uplifting, and then awakening, has a direct effect on the next person and the next person and the next person,
mm,
and affects the full collective, but not to the point where everybody wakes up at the same time. It's kind of like it's a it's a gradual thing. But I think, well, what about in my next life? Like, will I be more evolved spiritually, or will I go back where I'm just like, you know, not, like regress sort of further back? Um, which,
why would it be the case that you'd
well,
regret?
we just don't know, do you, really? Because you don't know what element of life that you still need to live. As many lives as I've had, which has been a lot that I know of, but would I be, um, would I progress further? Which is what I would hope. I would be on like the next trajectory, whatever that would be, because there's nothing you can actually really aim for as such. It's because it's all just levels of awareness within the self and consciousness that we all go through on different parallels and dimensions, and how we all um integrate with each other on some level. But you just don't know. I mean, there could be people that are so far consciously evolved, and in the next life they might need to be like on the other end of the scale because they've never experienced that, and just need to be kind of like just I don't know. I don't really know how to kind of explain it, but maybe a lot of just stuck in there, stuck in
Yeah,
the mind, stuck in the ego, stuck in the belief structures of what they believe. And but then maybe in that, like, you just don't know, maybe in that life there might just be a sudden like bump and off you go again to something new. It's quite massive to try and comprehend in a physical reality.
Yeah, we don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah.
What about if this is like, I've not seen the film, but I've heard a lot of people talk about Groundhog Day. You
Yeah.
know,
I saw it like years and years and years ago.
yeah. People always recommend it to me, so I talk to them about stuff. Like, but it could be that, you know, could just
Mm,
be Groundhog Day.
yeah. That's it. We just don't know like the full meaning and the full picture behind everything. We just got a level of what we collectively believe on that vibrational level that we're at, or that level of consciousness that we're at is what we believe. And then there's people will believe something else that are on a higher level of consciousness, and then the people on a lower level of consciousness have their level of beliefs, and it's just yeah, it's interesting to try and um figure out in some way, but like you say, you can't really. There's nothing there's nothing really overly substantial, because although you get people that go through hypnosis sessions and they get a lot of stuff that comes up from the subconscious and a lot of past life stuff that they replay and they talk about, which is obviously elements of them within their imagination, with that's stuff that's like locked away within their energetic being,
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be talked about and expressed and opened up to, so they can release elements of themselves that need to be released at certain points in time, to then push them onto another kind of level within themselves.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
it's just ew, we don't know, do we? No. That actually, that for me, that's there's always the nicest recognition, you know, that not knowing. The we probably talked about this last time. You know, I tend to repeat myself because this is the thing with integration, guys and girls who are listening. Like, it's, you have an insight of something, and it takes time for it to become your being. Do you know? Actually,
Yeah.
you be that.
Mm.
This is where a lot of people will get the spiritual ego, for example, is a classic symptom of someone who's had like an insight of, oh my God, wow, I am, could even be the realizing I am God, you know, that kind of, wow, there is only God, there is only one. And then the ego defenses will come in, instead of sitting with what normally comes up for me. I'll have like an insight or like a shifting consciousness, and then a lot of like sadness will come up, because it's a grieving process, right? Because
Mm.
part of you is dying. You
Mm.
know, if you're not ready to be with that, the ego will create a defense around it, and it could be the spiritual ego of someone who comes and says, "Oh, they'll hold on to this amazing insight they've had," you know, and say, "Look
Mm.
at me now." You know,
Yeah.
they're not quite ready to face the pain essentially that they've got.
Mm.
The light's supposed to kind of shine upon, and
Mm.
or the energy supposed to kind of wash away. But yeah, it's a process, isn't it? That
Mm.
embodiment of what you know to be true is one thing, isn't it? Okay, I know this is true, and another thing is being that truth. That's another.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a next level.
But it's when you actually, I think for me, it's when you actually kind of feel something happening, or you feel like a shift, or you feel like you've been touched by spirit or God, or you felt some presence, like what happened to me, just the other week there, just this wash of something that wasn't tangible. I couldn't say what it was, but all I could say from what it felt like was just some sort of spiritual presence that just kind of like washed over me and gave me the message to just surrender, which
Mm,
is something that I'd thought I was already doing. But then the level of ego was saying, well, that's what you already have. You've already done that. But obviously I hadn't, because then it just, everything just went and everything just kind of like lifted and changed again. Um, so yeah, it's It's interesting, but I think that interaction is what makes it for me. And as quick or as subtle as it can be, it can't be anything else because there's nothing physical there that's actually doing it. You know, it's just this ever-present force that is constantly around us, giving us signs, feelings, synchronicities, levels of awareness within the self that is directing us on some path to somewhere, somewhere else.
And that's quite an interesting insight in it, that the only thing God or spirit or that higher power or self or whatever is gonna say is let go.
Mm.
You know, there always it's a letting go, and it's a letting go of the false self, right? It's a letting
Yeah.
go of what you thought to be. So yeah, that's a really nice example, and it's also shows why people like listening, and reminds me like about that vulnerability. You know,
Mm.
you've got to, if you're on this spiritual path and you want to do this, or however you want to see it, do you know, unwind your karma, or bought them, you know, the path of truth or whatever in this life, then yeah, you got to be prepared to know, you know, absolutely fuck all, do you know? And
Mm.
then any sense of you that thinks
Yeah.
it's knowing, like, no, I've done this, and that's what that for me in my journey, that's been a telltale sign. If there's part of me going, you feel like feel some suffering or whatever, but then there's something going, oh no, I've, I've covered this, you know. There
Mm.
am there it is, there it is. That's the proof. The
Mm.
defenses come as well. Number
Yeah.
one, the feeling, and then you get the defenses that will come.
Mm.
And then you got there's the choice, right? Isn't it? It's okay. Well, maybe there is
Mm.
no choice, but if there's a readiness, like in your case, is okay, right? Yeah, let's
Mm.
let's drop down into it, and
And it's weird the way it happened, because for me, when anything like that usually happens for me, when I get some sort of direct connection or feeling, then it's usually in a place of either when I'm doing healing sessions, or when I'm doing like some sort of meditation, or I'm doing some sort of work on myself. That is when it usually comes in. So for it to happen where I'm just like at work in my everyday job, you know, which is very mundane, and it's just like, you know, for that to happen there, just like, I wouldn't have expected it really to happen there, because you're supposed to be on what a lot of people say, and what I've said before, is you kind of like need to be on like a certain vibrational field for that message from spirit or God or whatever to come in line with you. You have to be kind of like dialed into a similar frequency, and to be in a place of work which isn't overly enjoyable, it just does what it needs to do, for that to do, and then to have that level of vibration, to be able to feel that and sense that and hear that, makes me realize, well, actually, I can't be that badly off, actually, really, where when I am at work, um, and these things will just, I suppose, they will just happen when they're meant to happen on some level.
yeah, exactly. Maybe it's more sacred than you think. You know,
Mm.
maybe you've got some, you know, programs that are calling it, oh, this is mundane, this is that, but it's serving a purpose.
Mm.
You know, it's serving a higher purpose.
I mean, I was, uh, this is going to sound like, well, it won't sound weird to you, but it'll sound weird to a lot of other people. But like about a year ago, because the ego in me was just like going on about like, obviously building the business up, and um, getting clients and what have you, and I wasn't really at that level of surrender where I am now, and just allowing that flow and allowing that unity to come into my like kind of life. And I kept putting out that into the universe that I was going to leave work on this date in this month, like last year, or whenever it was.
Mm.
And then this, in my mind, I saw this blue being come towards me, and just said, you know, if you just surrendered to everything, you don't need to work at all. And then they just kind of like disappeared. And I just said, well, and then other people have said the same thing to me. They just said, if you just surrendered and just went away and left work and just focused on that, the universe would provide.
Mm.
But then it's okay saying that, but in the physical reality, it's quite hard to balance them too, isn't it? Because again, there's that level of I suppose, knowing that you've got this to pay or that to pay, or all these usual things in everyday life, where that obviously, like you say, that the work serves its purpose to bring a level of income in that covers that. Yeah.
Exactly. And another way of looking at it, the way I look at it with myself, sometimes if I'm in a situation I don't want to be in, or something kind of occurred, um, kind of and with love, this thing you've got to kind of, you could use words from a place of love and make sure it's not the ego kind of like attacking itself. And it's why I hesitate to say this, but you could also say to yourself, like, how arrogant of me to think I should be anywhere else other than in this supermarket. Like, you have no idea how your energy is influencing the people around you. You know,
Mm.
you don't know how God's working through you.
Mm.
You don't. And to think that we do,
Yeah.
there's an element of arrogance. And I hesitate using
Mm.
that word, but I know I'm not going to trigger your ego because you've got a lot of soul in you. But
Mm.
that's how I see it myself sometimes. I'm like, that's one perspective you can sit.
Yeah.
Actually, that's another way of surrendering, right? Like, if you're
Yeah.
ready
Yeah.
for that kind of thing, what the fuck do I know? Do you know?
That's it. Well, yeah, we just don't know
No.
what role, the role that we're playing at the minute, you know, that is serving not just a purpose for you, but it's also serving a purpose for the higher good on some level. You know, like you say, maybe the people you interact with day in, day out that need that level of something from you, even if it's just people that you interact with or you serve or you speak to, you know, and you're bringing some love and light to their day. You know, it's helping on that level as well. So that there's so many, and then you get the polar opposites of the people that are just like complete assholes at times. You're just like, but again, that aspect of me is maybe influencing them in some way, to maybe, because I just kind of like, when they do want to be in that mindset, I don't really rise to it, you know. And like, whereas a lot of people might react or just say, oh, what an absolute, you know, whereas I just like, all right, okay, you know, and just let it kind of like wash over. um
Mm.
and that will have, I would think that would have some sort of energetic effect on them as well.
Of course. Of course. Now, if you think about it from that perspective, like, how many people could actually play the role that you're playing? How many people do you know that need to be in these places? If we're gonna have this like new Earth, like these frequencies kind of manifest,
Mm.
how else is God gonna achieve it? He needs people
Mm.
in certain positions, and
Yeah, to raise the vibe and create the tribe.
yeah, exactly. To
Mm.
And obviously, I don't know, like, your job role, but I guess you see a lot of people, right?
Mm.
You mix energies with a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, who else would you pick? You know, to be in amongst a lot of people in a role where you can, you know, interact with them.
Mm.
Your ego is shrinking all the time because you've got these desire and probably a destiny to do what you're doing, like the Reiki business and stuff.
Mm.
When people are ready for it, right? When
Mm.
God's ready, maybe he's not ready yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably not. You got some more important things to do, like, um, yeah, there's just so many different ways you can perceive uh, reality, and you've got a lot of catalysts
Mm.
there as well. I mean, I'm saying this probably from my own projections of my own job I had, but I was in a not a similar position, but well, I guess it was similar. I was at a job I didn't want to do, and I wasn't spiritually aware at all. But I kind of just something in me knew like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. Do you know? And I built my
Mm.
business kind of around it, and eventually managed to kind of
Mm.
get off that job and just do my business and do my studies and whatnot. But there's so many there, like so many catalysts, and because I was into like personal development at that time, so I kind of
Mm.
listened to a lot of like very high like high vibrational stuff, and I was wanting to like I was going to the gym. I was waking up at like 5 in the morning, going to the gym, going to my job, um, and I'd walk in and say stuff to people. I worked at a school, with the disabled kids, and the staff members, they go, "Oh, hi Patrick, how are you?" You know, on Monday mornings, well, how are you? Another day, another week, kind of thing. And I'd say just probably a lot of it satisfy me again to trigger them and stuff, but also because I was feeling just a high frequency. I'd say like, I'm amazing. It's another beautiful day in the Matrix. I had no idea like from my little tiny perspective of that, like I
Mm.
was doing it for my own benefit so I could raise my vibration and etc etc. But actually, if you kind of take a step back, I was playing such a role there. I had so many karmic triggers there as well, like
Mm.
a ridiculous amount. um yeah, we're not in control of this, I don't think, like full
Mm.
control, like
No, no. It's that's something that's been kind of like more and more ever present with me of what I've been feeling lately. And there just seems to be it just seems to be more more present than ever before, is this kind of like overriding force of something so much bigger than this, just the feeling. um and a lot of that came from when that happened to me. It was just this. And I'd been feeling a similar thing like for a few days, that there was, you know how much of our reality that we're in is controlled by us, and how much of it is controlled by spirit or God or source. How much, what is the interplay between the two? And is every decision we make, every thought that we have, is that not actually a thought of us? Is that a message that flows through us that we need to be aware of from elsewhere? There's so many different um things in life to ponder, that we go through every single day. And then,
that could be an interesting one, like the difference. When I got into spirituality and stuff, they're talking about like listen to your intuition, listen to your intuition. And I was like, well, what's the difference between
an
this voice this
intuitive
voice
thought,
inside my head? Yeah, that's
yeah,
going, nah,
yeah.
man. What would you say? What's the yeah,
Well, that's
what's
exactly it. The ego and the thought is exactly that. It's just like blah 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 blah. The intuition comes from a totally different place in the body. I feel it comes from
yeah.
like it comes from like it comes from the heart and the solar plexus. I think it comes from that whole middle area. And I think that's why a lot of movies, a lot of superheroes, they always have like an emblem or something in the
Oh,
chest. Because there's this, Iron Man is a perfect example, and he has that Tesla thing or whatever it is in his chest, that light beam or whatever, because they know of this direct connection to the heart and our spirit through this center. And that's, for me, that is where I get this intuitive extrasensory. Well, it's not really extrasensory because we've all got it, but there's not all of us are aware of it. A lot of us will just think it's just coincidence, or it's just like they might just experience it as another thought form
mm,
rather than actual feeling, because they're not aware of what is going on energetically within themselves. So it'll just come through as just like, oh, I feel a bit like this, or I feel like this, or I'll feel like that. And then usually straight away, people that have a lot of ego, they'll label it with a negative umbrella,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which then creates more negativity within, which then subsides and dumbs down the intuition even further, to a point that you don't really feel anything, and you just go through life kind of like a bit like a robot or a drone or whatever. But yeah, that's for me is kind of like where I feel it, just like it's central. It's not like up here. And when I tune out of that, especially if I'm doing healing sessions or I'm doing like readings or anything like that, I try and just tune out of the head and just tune into the space within and just see what I'm feeling. And that's where, for me, that's where it comes from. And it's totally different to that, that's always like working away in the background. Totally different feeling altogether.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely like a depth, and the intuitive voice is always a for me. It's like a feeling, like a knowing that then translates into a thought.
Mm,
Opposed
yeah.
to a thought which then translates into a ooh, like a feeling of fear,
Yeah, yeah.
or makes you paranoid or whatever. It's like it's like a deep, it's a deep
And you
knowing.
have to be careful with that as well, because I think a lot, that's where I think a lot of people that are very in tune spiritually with themselves, and they're very in tune with their abilities. They might get labeled like schizophrenic or something like that, because they've got something. Maybe they're hearing spirit or they're hearing voices or whatever, where they've got a much deeper connection to that, but they can't differentiate between the two, and they can't work it out. So it's just a constant, and they really don't know what it is,
Yeah.
and where it comes from. Um, so, but yeah, what you said there, where you kind of feel it, and then it becomes the message. That's
It
kind of
yeah, I see that it gets translated for like
yeah.
for it to kind of integrate almost. Maybe it's like that. Maybe the download. I mean, this wisdom's always here.
Mm,
It's always available in it, but we kind of need to
yeah.
tune into it. Where you sit quietly,
Mm,
or maybe like just a moment of like a beauty, something that encapsulates you, and the
mm,
mind goes, and then
yeah.
this intuition is kind of more uh, it's like louder, yeah. But it's a feeling. The ego is always fear
Mm,
based storage. So it'll either be like fear, anger, uh, jealousy. I guess jealousy you could put anger or
mm.
fear, isn't it?
And a lot of that
Mm,
comes from like that, the programming, the level of programming that we get. So you can either program yourself to be more in tune with your intuition and your spiritual self, or you can remain programmed into the egoic mindset of just everything, the world being against you, everyone being against you, life's hard, I can't do this, I can't do that, and constantly feel like you're just being challenged every single day. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Really interesting.
mm. And if you do feel that way, feel like you're being challenged every day and life's hard and it's a you're suffering, right? That's the whole point. You're suffering. That suffering's a call into, hey, take a step back,
Mm,
take a step in. Stop projecting out these feelings. And this is what integration is, isn't it?
mm,
Start to reclaim it. And as you do that, the mind magically changes. The mind that had this story, thought it was this is the way it is.
mm.
Right, let's go of it completely. And he goes, oh, no, this is true now. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like, oh, what do you mean I didn't believe that? Come
Mm.
on.
And it doesn't really take that long to kind of reprogram that way of thinking. It doesn't take long. I think Joe Dispenza did like a meditation where it was like something like follow this meditation for something like 21 days or something like that. So it's not really that long. So like less than a month to follow the words and reprogram, rewire your thoughts, your conditioning
Mm,
into a more positive way of being. And you will just over time, you will feel gradually lighter. And if you continue that for a year, imagine what you're going to be like after a year. If you do it for 21 days and you feel like
Mm.
a nice little gentle shift within yourself, and you feel more happy with yourself, you feel like you're more pleased with your appearance, you're more pleased with the location that you live in, you're more happy just within the self. You know, imagine what you're going to be like after a year, after 2 years, after 3 years of remaining on that that rewiring and
Yeah.
that new discovery of self.
Yeah. And I'd say that's probably why in the evolution of soul or whatever we are, the personal development bit comes first, right? Because you, like you
Mm,
said, you've got to lighten up those patterns, you know.
mm,
I mean, some beings get, you know, go from complete unconsciousness to complete enlightenment, and they pretty much stabilize in that state of enlightenment.
mm,
Still, like Eckhart Tolle, you know,
mm.
pretty much his story, right? A lot of suffering, and then oh, you
Yeah.
know, spiritual realization, and then his karma was to stay in there and teach. Obviously,
Mm.
most most of us been a bit naughty. we we got to go through the stages of personal development. I want to improve this person. I don't like this person. I'm not good enough. What the ego feels about itself, always like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I want to better myself. I need more money. That make me feel better. So then
Mm,
you start getting into the Joe Dispenza stuff, the reprogram subconscious mind, still for the ego, right? So ego
mm,
can feel better about itself, get a better body, get better this, that, and then they move up. But at this process is a lightness, yeah. So it's getting
mm,
lighter and lighter. And then at some point they'll have the kind of spiritual realization of, oh, I am improving myself, you know.
mm,
Who's the I? What? What's the who's this myself that I'm
mm,
improving? And then eventually it's like for me anyway, it happened like this. And I've still got my notebooks from 2020 to 2023, the past 3 years of writing this, you know. So who is the I? Do you know? How do I who is the I?
all over the walls around the house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My girlfriend was like, "Oh my God, you're not well, a bit
He's
more."
off. He's off again.
Who's the I? Fuck. Who is this I then? And you try and intellectualize it and think about it. Try and discover the I through delusion.
Mm,
And that's the spiritual journey. A lot of people spend years on that, don't they? Like
mm,
reading spiritual books and this and that, and they eventually have an insight, and then you realize, oh, it's actually a deconstruction needs to take place of this false I, and that's the neti neti process, isn't it? Oh, okay, well, I'm not that thought, I'm not this, I'm not that,
mm.
and then the integration.
Yeah.
Oh, I am that. I am that. I'm not just that, but I am that. And then slowly the mind starts to shut up a bit.
Mm,
And the you know
yeah.
self emerges that never wasn't there, but just conscious of itself, I guess.
Yeah. And with that level, like you were saying before, with that level of awareness of that the different levels of ego, where you start feeling a little bit lighter, and you start thinking, oh well, money will bring me happiness, or this will bring me happiness. But then you get to that point, and actually you realize that you don't need the money to feel happier, because you found that happiness or a different level within yourself. And then you go to like another level where you thought something else would bring you happiness, and then you think, oh, actually, I'm like feeling just this level of balance and peace within the self already. I don't need that anymore. And then you realize that actually life is like life is just an amazing journey of just true awareness of presence, and just the sheer experience of it. I mean, when you think of how like amazing that is, that we're here experiencing this, and we've chosen this life from a past life where we've come back to actually live this life, to experience this and go through all this, go through all the healing ancestral patterns, healing traumas, going through all, how amazing is that, the work that we do in the integration and the healing of not just ourselves but of the whole of humanity,
Mm.
and Earth, and everything that is changing in vibration is going along with us on the journey. It's just like, it's like unreal. It's immense. It's like,
Yeah, it's on every level, isn't it? On
yeah.
every level, you can just sit and look at like a plant or a tree or literally anything, even something man made. It's a
Mm,
bit hard, a little bit harder to kind of sense the divine in like man made things, but you could just marvel at like, wow, like first of all, you first got to drop the think that you know what's going on. That's you
mm,
know you've got to. That's why I like the etymology of like wonder. You've got to wonder to wonder.
mm,
The first like I don't know. Okay, I wonder what's happening, and in that somewhere between that not knowing and being, you're like fucking hell,
mm.
wow,
Yeah.
wow, it is like, and the mind blowing is such a beautiful expression as well, isn't it?
Mm,
Blows your mind.
yeah.
You're
Because
never going to be in a state of astonishment, like with a mind that's going, "Meh, meh, meh, meh." It blows your mind.
mm. And just being in that, when you're in that state, or say you're out in nature and you're just looking at the beauty of a tree, or the sky, and just looking at these things, and just being, you just become, when I look at a tree, I'm almost like tuning into what that tree is actually feeling. And you just, even if you sit next to a tree or touch the tree, I touched a tree this morning when I was out walking the dog, and closed my eyes, and I was just like, I just felt just so oomph, just solid and powerful, and just so strong. And it almost felt as though it there was a connection between me and the tree. Just as I touched the tree, there was like, it was almost like the energy of the tree was moving into me as well. It was like this interplay of two energies. And I'm just like, whoa. And then the dog wanted to be off, so I had to
Yeah, yeah,
I had to go. But it was just like, for that instance of just that feeling and that connection, it's those moments when you're in these kind of euphoric, mind-blowing states, that you just feel this, and you just like, God, it's just beautiful. Everything is just amazing. It's just so powerful.
yeah. And
And
in
how
it,
and
sorry, go
how
on.
it all works, like it just does its own thing. The planet, nature. Well, I mean, when you think of like the universe and how it all works, and the way nature works, and it just looks after itself and
Mm,
cares for itself, and we're just kind of like muddling around a little bit, and what have you, and we're going through elements of nature where it's kind of like destroying it and what have you. But nature creates another pathway and builds itself somewhere else,
mm.
and just does what it needs to do, and we don't need to interfere with it. It will just repair itself, which is again like another metaphor for us.
You saying we don't need the carbon tax? Is this what you're saying?
We don't
We
need
won't
carbon.
get into it.
We don't
You'll
need
get
carbon tax.
you'll get shadow banned. Don't say that. Bleep that out. Bleep that out. Oh man, I forgot what I was gonna say now. Oh, it's so beautiful what you were talking about the tree. So I started smiling. I was like, oh my god, yeah. I can't remember what I was gonna say. I forgot. My mind got blown. Ah, that was it. That was it. How interesting is it that we intuitively say like, "Oh my God," when your mind is blown, whether
Mm.
it's like touching a tree or touching something else or someone else, and you get like those ecstatic, those ecstatic like states. That is the thing that every language they'll all say, "Oh my God," do you
Mm.
know? Isn't that interesting? Like what an intuitive kind of
Mm.
knowing that that kind of language comes out.
Mm.
Oh my God, like or Jesus or any kind of thing that indicates a
Mm.
higher power, higher presence, um, or yeah, I say higher, even though higher, I'm not really sure. It's like it's why it's hard to talk using words in it.
Mm,
You have to speak within terms of duality, but like an expansion almost. That's that kind of
mm,
that expansiveness.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, comes out like that's silly.
But to use the word like kind of like my as well, or my God, it also implies an element of you within that as well. So
Yeah.
that so there's like that element of you that is that connection to God as well in yourself. And it's
Yeah, that's
all
true.
it's all just one. It's kind of
Yeah.
it is
Even
kind of like emotional and like uplifting and overwhelming and mind-blowingly awesome.
yeah. Even I mean, this is for a little bit schizophrenic level, but even oh, oh my God, oh, even in other languages, I say oh, and oh, and it's making an oh sound. What is that shape? It's oh,
Yeah. Oh,
om.
yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, maybe I might be looking into it a bit too deeply, but synchronicities are just coming in for me. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
making up my own little story.
You have
You're
your
a little
you have
dreamer.
your own language in 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is it? What was it? QI a few years ago with Stephen Fry said the language that will be of the future is something called panglish or something like that. I think it was called, and it basically sounded like child speak. It was like I can't even think of the words that were, but even Alan Davis said like it just sounds like a kid talking, because I think the word like orange was orange or something like that. It was just like why? Why? Why change it from orange to orange? It just sounds exactly the same, apart from using like a different letter. But it almost sounds like kind of some of the words sounded like almost like Chinese, sort of influenced onto English. But apparently, that's going to be the language of the future on QI, and QI is always right, apparently.
Oh yeah, BBC, of course. That that is super interesting, mate. Because I recently watched a video of this. I think he's an online English teacher talking to his 90 something year old, 93-year-old grandmother. Right, the difference is they speak. They both have like a typical received pronunciation. Um, and I can't remember annoyingly off the top of my head the different words they speak. And the younger guy, yeah, it was all like shorter, and what was the words now? Annoyingly, I can't remember the words. But like the old lady was like saying the words in two parts, like really pronouncing, you know, what
Mm,
she was saying. Like
mm.
the words were like do rather than the, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
That yeah, that's interesting. Uh I wonder because I mean, hey, listen, the evolution of language, it's not separate from this evolution, this rising of consciousness, is it?
Mm,
It's going to be affected as well.
mm-hmm.
Um, I guess you could take loads of different angles on it, couldn't you? Even what you said about Chinese, there'll be someone, in the
Mm.
comments speak saying like, yeah, the Chinese are taking over us because we're becoming communist. That may be true,
uh,
but yeah, or it could just be who knows, telepathy. Do you know? I mean, what's the next evolution of that? When people are speaking about, oh, it would just end up going back to, and then that will raise up into the vibe, some kind of telepathy or some shit.
Vibrational field of just like yeah, just
Yeah, could
levitation, telepathy,
could
all.
be, or it could be one of those, just a standard reset cycle, isn't it? Where you kind of
Mm.
you start off with a certain level of intelligence, drops down.
go back, go back to, going back to caveman speak like,
Yeah, geez, mate.
oh.
Yeah. Maybe they've not lied about that. Maybe
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Oh, there we go again. Oh God.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God.
Yeah.
God.
Mm.
Yeah. What is, when there's nothing else to say, that's the only thing to say, isn't it? Like in those moments, oh God, because it is all God,
Mm.
you know, all God. That's what is being experienced purely or more purely, let's say, because you're always experiencing I, right? Or experiencing self. It's just in those moments when the mind is silent, it's like a closeness, you could say, I guess.
Mm.
And then taking DMT or whatever, even even more so and even deeper.
Mm.
Close. It's just a stripping away of what's not real.
It's like a release as well sometimes, isn't it? Just using that expression, when you just need to like let something out. It's like a release of, oh my God, thank God for that, or whatever. You just like it's like an expression and just a release of a feeling or an emotion or just a way of being or a heaviness that you've had over yourself. And you just like when it lifts and it leaves, you just like, oh my God, that feels so much better.
Yeah, I wonder if you do it the other way around. If you start off your days going, oh, thank God,
Mm,
maybe start rather than having to be in a state of suffering and then something
mm,
something alleviates the suffering and then you say it. Maybe start off in that. Could be interesting.
mm. Yeah, I know leading up to that, for the last sort of few weeks, I've been using what we call the Reiki precepts quite a bit, and I've also been using the Hopono meditation quite a bit as well,
Yeah,
and they have quite a lot of connection between the two. What I feel with them, um, and the words, and the words that like for the Reiki precepts is like there's five. It's like five phrases, and it all begins with like just for today. So just for today, I let go of worry. Just for today, I let go of anger. Just for today, I'm grateful for my many blessings. Just for today, and I've got them here next to me. And I was just for each day for about 2 weeks. I was just kind of like just repeating them over and over again in my mind, and just going into like just using like a mantra and going to like a meditative state with them. Or then I would be using like Hopono as well, and using them as a mantra, and just using them to take me into like a deep meditative state. And it 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 has shifted something using them. Um, Again, I can't say what, but obviously for that to happen and that message of like just surrendering and all that sort of stuff to come through, um, would it have happened if I wasn't doing that? I don't know, really. Um, but there's something so magical about Reiki and about the power of Reiki and the philosophy behind Reiki as well of Mikao Usui, who like kind of found this energy again, um, and the messages behind it all. It was just so deep, so profound, um, and like in the West, we tend to focus more on the actual art of healing and putting the hands on the body at different locations, whereas in the East, Reiki was more about the philosophy and then a little bit about the healing on the side. So it was more about the healing of the internal, of philosophy, of bringing total peace to the internal. And once you've reached that place of great light or enlightenment within, then you can start giving the healing to others, because then they can feel the effects from
mm,
your inner light, because the inner light is never ending. It's constant. So yeah,
yeah,
just a little bit there.
yeah. And that's if you think about it, as like people have their inner child who's very like uh, injured or hurt or not seen or traumatized or whatever. Like with children, you can if a child is there like crying, and you kind of say, oh, they say like, you're fine, everything's all right, everything's all right. They can feel the energy like
Mm,
before
mm,
anything else. So you imagine those energetic parts, they can feel the energy, they
mm-hmm,
can feel your okayness. The person themselves might not be kind of consciously aware of it, but you're kind
mm,
of communicating with that deeper
mm,
part of them, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, just it popped into my head when you were saying that.
That's
You
why
definitely,
I always say to like clients, especially ones that have, say, like contact healing, but even with distance healing as well,
mm,
they will probably feel the effects because the integration is taking place within the energy, within the energetic field, and within the body. They'll feel effects maybe 3, 4, 5 days later,
mm,
where things might start coming up, or there might be an element of healing that is going on within that the Reiki is working with. And then yeah, and you usually do find that after a Reiki session a few days later that they'll get in touch just to say, oh, I've been feeling this, I've been feeling that, is that normal? So you just have to clarify and just give them a little bit of guidance. Yeah, it's fine. If you're feeling emotions, they're just being released, don't worry about it. If you're having some strange dreams, it's just the subconscious mind is doing what it needs to. It's making your spirit, your soul aware of things that you need to be aware of on an unconscious level. So then
yeah,
it can be like kind of brought forward into your reality to be healed on another level. So yeah, it's interesting, really interesting. So, and I'm teaching Reiki 1 this weekend, actually, Saturday and Sunday. So looking forward to that.
perfect. Is that in person or online?
Yeah, in person. So I've got 3. I did have 4, but I've got 3 students um ready to do their Reiki 1. So Saturday and Sunday in-person training. So looking forward to it. So it'll be good.
Yeah. Oh man, I probably I would never be a Reiki practitioner, I don't think, but I would probably love to do it like a course just to see, just to kind of get like
Mm,
what Reiki is about and
mm,
how it differs from what I do. I don't even know what I would call what I do now, like psycho spiritual kind of non-dual therapy, like in
mm,
because it's more of a Western thing. Like talking therapy is it's
mm.
still it's very yeah. It still needs to develop like some of the Eastern kind of stuff in. I think about like
Yeah.
energy. We kind of neglect that in normal kind of yeah therapy.
Mm. But at least you're aware of it within yourself anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm a world class therapist,
Mm. Yeah.
mate. I'm great, but no, but as a philosophy, I would love maybe might end up having to make it. Just something, it's just easy when you've got to think of something when there's a name for it and like a
Mm.
framework.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what to call. I used to talk to my supervisor. She'd say, "Okay, well, how did you get your client from here to here?" And I'd be like, "Don't know." Kind of talk to them, like open up some kind of space. And I couldn't even speak using these terms, I kind of
Mm.
talk to them, open up a space, open up a space inside them, kind of go under the defenses, find the emotion underneath the story, go into the body, work with that directly. They'd have a few dreams or nightmares or karma bits that they come and bring to the next session. We kind of integrate them, and
Mm.
that's, you know, then
Mm.
changes would happen in their life. Like that's I don't know what you call that, like
Mm.
CBT. There are so many different
I
names
mean, I
for
think
practices.
all healing practices, they all have the same kind of effects, and they all have the same
Mhm.
outcomes. They just have a different way of getting there.
Yeah,
So with Reiki, it's more to do with um the person's subconscious mind and being receiving of the energy, and and even just being in those relaxed places. So even just like during meditations, the actual practice of Reiki, a lot of the philosophy is based around meditation, just meditating for long periods of time to then focus and harness that energy on yourself, to be able to then move it on to others. Um, but I think all the healing modalities, they all have that element of um, just finding that spaciousness within. And incorporating, some people incorporate breath. The breath work's really important. And following the breathing, or qigong, tai chi, yoga. All these different practices, they all bring elements of this this energy that's within us and being able to harness it and utilize it for positive rather than negative. And seeing how the negative thoughts and the negative belief patterns actually create the negative entity that is carrying all that around rather than bringing the positivity. And those quiet spaces of contemplation and quietness allow you to see that and become aware of it and become aware of all these maybe loops of negative thought patterns. And sometimes you can feel it, like if I put my hands on somebody's body, on the chest, on the shoulders, you can just feel it all just falls out the body. It's just like weird. And then at the end of it, they just like cry or they laugh, or and you just know there's just something's just released, and you can just empathically, I'll feel it in person. But when it's distant, it tends to be more spiritual, intuitive stuff that I'll pick up on and that I'll feel. But the empathic thing is just like, yeah, it's. I mean, when I did my Reiki 1 course, there was supposed to be another girl who was supposed to be on the course, and she couldn't make it, so it was only me. And my Reiki master had never taught just one person. He'd always done like either 2 to 4. Because then the other person could practice on the others. So he had to think like, I'll have to start getting some like what he called team players or ringers in or whatever for me to practice on them and practice the healing. And one of them, one of the guys that came in, he sat down, he started doing the Reiki, and I was on his head and worked down the various chakra points on the body. And I was just I think I was at his shoulders or at his ears or something like that. And I had this strange sensation in my knees. And I said to him, I said, do you have a problem with your knees? And anyway, my Reiki master just kind of like laughed. So I thought, well, there must be something going on there, but I didn't know what. He didn't say anything. Then at the end of the session, the guy said, he said, oh, you're saying about my knees. I said, oh yeah. He said he rolled his trousers up. He'd had 2 knee transplants. So I was just,
Wow.
but like my Reiki master was like, well, this isn't supposed to happen. You're not supposed to be able to like kind of like feel this stuff. But then he was like, because he knew I was kind of like empathic and spiritually wired, I think he realized that that's why I was kind of like feeling these things. So he found that amazing, really. So, and that was just that was on like kind of like my Reiki 1 training. So, and then things just become more, it gets kind of like more spiritually deeper as you move towards like kind of like the Reiki master training and what have you. You go more and more deeper within the self to.
Yeah. What level are you on now?
So, well, I'm as far as you can get now in Usui. So I'm like a Reiki master teacher.
Okay.
But I could go on and do different modalities of Reiki if I want, but I'd just think, well, what's the point? Because it's all kind of like the same energy. It's all the same thing. For me, I think a lot of it is just ego. That people put over,
Yeah,
oh, this is
probably.
more powerful for that than that, and this is more
Yeah,
powerful than that. I just think, it's all just the same energy. It all comes from the same place. So, yeah. So there we go. So we need to chat about,
yeah. We'll wrap up the
but
recording.
we'll wrap the recording up. So anyway, it's been lovely to speak to you again,
Okay,
and hopefully catch you soon.
will do. Cheers,
Okie
mate.
dokie, Patrick. Bye for
Take
now.
care.